Boom! What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Saturday to you all, and welcome to another live beer review. Today we're going to be taking a look at a beer from, I guess you could say, a more well-known brewery within the craft beer community. They're up in New York. I've seen them have distribution in so many different states, it's hard to count. I see a lot of check-ins, a lot of people enjoying beers from this brewery. And today we got a seasonal one from Southern Tier Brewing Company that they do this release around October, I guess, so I think this would be a perfect opportunity to do a review on this guy. But this one is called the Warlock Imperial Pumpkin Stout. So if anybody here is accustomed to drinking beers from Southern Tier Brewing Company, around this time they also release something called the Pumpkin, which is their pumpkin ale, I guess you could say, around Halloween time and just October and all that kind of stuff like that. And they decided to kind of take that same kind of pumpkin like additive recipe and put it to an Imperial Stout, which I think is a very interesting twist. Of course, a lot of people are not really fond of like pumpkin spice and things. I don't know. I'm not like that basic white bitch kind of situation. So I'm always really curious to see what that pumpkin-y kind of note is going to do to an Imperial Stout. Is it going to make it have a little more sweetness? Of course, that has a really nice... Stouts usually have a really nice malt character, a lot of roasted malts, all that kind of stuff to add sometimes smokiness, adds a little bit of bitterness as well, depending on the style of stout. But Southern Tier does some really cool stuff over there. I've always been a really big fan of beers from Southern Tier just because they're more well known, but they still stick to craft brewing like stuff when it comes to just how they brew things and different ideas and all that kind of stuff like that. So I'm always considering Southern Tier one of the more well-known craft brewers around the country, I would say, because I think availability for their stuff is pretty good. It's getting to the point to where you can find a lot of their stuff in like grocery stores and all that stuff like that. So I'm pretty damn excited to give this one a try, not gonna lie. So this guy comes in at an 8.6% ABV, so it's not really crazy high on alcohol percentage, but that's okay. But I think this is going to be a nice, pretty good drinking Imperial Stout. I don't think I've ever had an Imperial Stout from Southern Tier. I've mostly drank a lot of their IPAs and all that stuff, and they're more like the West Coast IPAs, having a little bit more of a bitterness to them. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with like a pumpkin kind of stout. I don't know. I felt like needing to review this one since we're getting to that season and all that kind of stuff like that. So let's crack this thing open. Let me find my correct bottle opener to do on a review. Of course, I wasn't prepared to do that already. If I can't find it, I'll just use a normal one that I open beers with. Where the hell is that bottle opener? Because there's a very specific one I like to use during reviews, and I can't seem to find it right now, but oh well, so I'm going to use a different one. But let's crack this thing open and see what we get on the nose with this guy. Okay. So I guess it doesn't really have like a crazy kind of carbonation thing going on, so they must, when they carb this beer, they must have not gone too crazy when it comes to carbing it, but that's okay because they try to let some of the other stuff kind of speak through, and it kind of helps the mouthfeel and all the stuff like that. So definitely getting that pumpkin. It's definitely more of a pumpkin spice kind of note. So I'm wondering how they did the additives of the pumpkin. They could use pumpkin extract, they could use pumpkin puree, but I don't know if they added the puree to the bright. I'm not 100% sure if they actually used puree in this. They could have done a cheesecloth where they did a couple like spices that usually go in pumpkin spice and stuff like that, but I'm not 100% sure. But you're definitely getting a little bit of a note of the pumpkin is definitely more predominant than any of those like roasted malt characters you would get from aromas and all that kind of stuff like that. I don't know if this is going to be too bitter. I don't think it's going to have like a crazy kind of bitterness to it because I think you want that pumpkin-y kind of note to speak for itself. But it smells good. It definitely smells good. So I'm going to be drinking this out of my Untapped tulip glass this afternoon. So let's pour this thing, see what it's all about. Oh yeah, definitely dark. Exactly what you'd expect from an Imperial Stout. Definitely not a lot of carbonation, that's for damn sure. Let's see if I can fit most of it in the glass. I was able to fit most of it, but not too crazy on that. But let's see. Look at that. Yeah, looks like an Imperial Stout to me. Definitely not much of a head. So that's telling me there's not a lot of carbonation. But more that I pour it, that pumpkin sweetness is definitely starting to come through a little bit more. Almost, yeah, you definitely get like hints of cinnamon and nutmeg and all the stuff like that, along with that pumpkin spice kind of feel on the nose. But yeah, this smells actually pretty solid, not gonna lie. I know a lot of people aren't really into pumpkin spice and all that pumpkin-y beers, but it definitely has my attention. So let's give this guy a try and see what it's all about. So, cheers everybody. Happy Saturday. Okay. It's definitely more on the bitter end. I would probably put this as like a close to maybe kind of similar to bitterness of a Russian Imperial almost, not as boozy, but you're definitely still getting not crazy sweetness, to be honest. You're definitely getting a lot of those bitter roasted malt characteristics that come through a lot when it comes to making a nice kind of something I would expect from a Russian Imperial Stout. But you get that slight like pumpkin-y kind of sweetness. It's not overbearing at all, but it's pretty well balanced. It's not boozy. It has some really nice flavors going on there. I think the pumpkin kind of note mixing with that bitterness of the roasted malts coming through, making it not really getting the smokiness that much. But I think just having that pumpkin flavor intermingle with those bitter flavors that the malts are producing, plus most likely the hops that they used as well. I'm not 100%. I'm really curious of how long of a boil they did on this one too as well, because a lot of the times when we make our Imperial Stouts over at Fibs, it's usually a 90-minute boil. Nothing really too crazy. A lot of our beers are usually 90-minute boils. So, because then the longer the boil, the more time the flavors have to mingle in. Of course, it's going to get a lot more intense the longer you boil it. But then when it comes to adding hops and stuff, of course, the closer you add hops to a beer towards the beginning of the boil, like right when you start, it's going to definitely bring in bitterness. So if like you have a 90-minute boil and you're adding hops in at like an hour mark, you're definitely adding that hops in there just to add bitterness to it. That's pretty much what it's used for. Of course, when you add hops later in the boil, it kind of brings off a little bit of those natural flavors the hops bring off sometimes. So hops can be a little more spice forward, definitely bring off bitter flavors still. But I can see a lot of when they did add hops to this one being towards the beginning of the boil just to kind of get those bitter notes. Like I said, it's not too bitter at all. It's definitely pretty well balanced for what it is. It's not too overly, it's roasty, not really getting much coffee flavors, but that roasty bitterness is kind of coming in with that slightly sweet, slightly spiced pumpkin flavor. And it's pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie. It's not bad. Yeah, this is definitely something I can enjoy on a nice fall day. I'll be completely honest here. I didn't know what to expect drinking this one. If it was going to be like a pumpkin pie kind of flavor in there, if it was going to be just straight pumpkin spice, I wasn't sure, but I was definitely curious. And overall, the flavors are pretty damn good on this one. It's definitely nice and balanced. It's not too overpowering in any aspect, which is nice. And it's just a pretty nice, solid Imperial Stout for the fall, I think, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to review it and kind of give my thoughts on it, because it's available around this season, and some people might look at this review and then see it when they're at the grocery store sometime and then be curious on it. So let's look here at Untapped. Of course, they show some similar beers here to where you might have a similar experience. Of course, let's look, because on Untapped, this is actually rated as a pumpkin/yam beer, which is interesting, because I'm wondering why they just didn't put Imperial Stout up, because it's not straight like pumpkin or yam or anything like that. But of course, when it comes to looking at similar beers on Untapped, it shows the Pumpkin being on there, and the Pumpkin is definitely on that same category of being a pumpkin/yam beer. But it's that I would say that one's more of like a lager, or maybe I don't think it's into the point where being a cream ale or anything like that. But they definitely use a lot of pumpkin spice. It's malty, so that's what made me think it's maybe towards a lager. It depends on if they lagered it with the yeast or not, but it's like it says malty for the malty bready, so that's giving me characteristics of the pumpkin being like a lager. So taking that same kind of recipe they use for the pumpkin and putting it into an Imperial Stout is definitely a very, very nice, interesting kind of take on it. Of course, you got some other ones from, let's see, you got one here from Cigar City called the Good Gourd, which is an 8.8%. Of course, pumpkin, I think Cigar City is down in Florida, if I remember correctly. That one is actually going to be more in the similar of Pumpkin. Let's see. We got one here from Lexington Brewing and Distilling Co., which is another one that's more... See, that's tough, because this is a 10%, and they're kind of doing the same thing from this one when it comes to making it more like that nice amber color and not having an Imperial Stout kind of look to it. And what else? We got another here called, I'm not going to look at this one. And then we got one here from Dogfish Head called the Pumpkin Ale, which, again, these are all more having that amber kind of color to it. So it's going to be really hard to try to find a similar beer to this one, I guess you can say. I guess Southern Tier's kind of put it on like the map for themselves to take a recipe that they're well known for with their pumpkin and put it into an Imperial Stout with the Warlock. And to be honest, I don't see a lot of breweries doing that. Even though Southern Tier is pretty damn well known, you don't see a lot of breweries kind of going crazy when it comes to adding pumpkin to an Imperial Stout, which I think is a kind of almost a missed opportunity. I haven't seen really many pumpkin spiced or anything pumpkin related in Imperial Stouts before. So seeing this definitely caught my attention just because it's that time of year and all that kind of stuff like that. But trying to find a similar beer to this one, to me, is going to be tough. Just because a lot of the ones that you're going to find at liquor stores or bottle shops or even grocery stores, if it's a well-known brewery, are going to be more of that pumpkin ale, to where it's going to be lighter amber in color, definitely going to have a different malt characteristic to it. Not going to have as much roasty kind of characters. It's more going to be more bready, malty, and all that kind of stuff like that. When this one is specifically more on the bitter side of maltiness, you're definitely getting a bitterness from the hops that they most likely use in here as well. But I think that pumpkin spice note that they add into it is pretty nice to kind of counterbalance those bitter notes that those malts give you. But overall, yeah, like I said before, this one's pretty solid. I'm definitely enjoying it. I don't know if it's going to be like, oh, this is going to be a world-changing beer for me. No. But I think it's still a nice kind of easy drinking. Even though it's at 8.6%, I wouldn't really consider this like a sessionable beer still. But this is something that, to me personally, would be something I would enjoy in the day like today. It's nice. It's a little bit cooler out, definitely hoodie weather. And this is the kind of beer that I would think of walking through the forest in the middle of fall or walking through a pumpkin patch drinking this. I would not mind doing that. But to me, finding a similar beer to this one is going to be very, very tough, just because a lot of the breweries making pumpkin style of beer is going to be more on that pumpkin ale kind of situation. You're not going to see a lot of pumpkin Imperial Stouts, which, who knows, there might be some out there. It's just Untapped isn't showing them for me, but oh well. So, but there's a good chance that you most likely would be able to find this Warlock from Southern Tier at your local liquor store, bottle shop, or even at a grocery store, just because Southern Tier is more well known throughout the country. And because I'm looking here at Untapped, of course, it's showing a bunch of local verified venues for me personally. And then looking here for popular locations, you got Toledo, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, Reading, Pennsylvania, New Haven, Indiana, Asbury, New Jersey, Kentucky, Florida, New Jersey, Ohio. A bunch of, looks like it kind of leans more towards the East Coast, but I've definitely seen Southern Tier show up on the West Coast as well. So there definitely is some good availability when it comes to seeing Southern Tier all around the country. So you most likely would be able to get your hands on this one if you just look close enough. I think you'll be able to find somewhere local that can carry this Southern Tier beer. But let's look back at Untapped. Let me take one more sip because it's pretty good. And let's see what they show as a description for this guy before we start looking at ratings and all that. So what they show as a description is the unbeatable pumpkin recipe was adopted for the stout beer style in 2011. So they first made their first variant of Warlock in 2011. And they say it's a dark and mysterious, reignite your senses with Warlock's huge roasted malt character, moderate carbonation, and spiced pumpkin aroma. Which, definitely get that spiced pumpkin aroma on the nose. You're definitely get not too crazy carbonation when it comes to this one. So I'm wondering if they didn't carb it too much. They probably left it pretty low on the carb kind of thing where they added CO2 to it. But having that kind of robust, bitter malt character mixing in with that pumpkin spice kind of note, I think is a really nice balance. So I think Southern Tier did a pretty damn good job with this one. Of course, let's look at the ratings now and see what they, like I stated before, it's 8.6% ABV, so I would not consider this beer sessionable because this is the kind of beer that I would think of drinking a bottle of it or you pour it into a glass and walking through a pumpkin patch, sitting out on a nice fall day, maybe like enjoying one of these after you're trying to rake up leaves or anything like that in October. So this is something that will definitely warm you up. I would not consider it sessionable. And this one has 44 IBUs, so pretty moderate, like medium to low IBU rating. So that's IBUs definitely in there for pronouncing hoppy bitterness to it. So when you see an IBU rating in a beer, it's kind of giving you a rating of how hoppy bitter it's going to be. So 44 to me is like more in the medium to low end of hoppy bitterness, but you're still getting that pronounced bitterness that goes through this one. And since this is their Warlock one, on Untapped itself, it has the Warlock variant for each year. So you have the 2021, 22, the 2019. So there's a bunch of different variants of this one they have on Untapped for that specific year. But if you go under just the regular Warlock, it has over 150,910 ratings. And with that many ratings, it has an average rating of 3.96 out of 5, which is pretty good for having that many ratings. 150,000 check-ins and people rating this one and still having that really close to a 4 rating, I think is pretty nice. So let's look here. Let's see my friends list. Check this one in. I think, oh yeah, we have a decent amount of people on my friends list who check this one in. So let's look here. Of course, my father purchased the 4-pack. Actually, was it a 4-pack? Yeah, it was a 4-pack of these ones when he purchased it. And he purchased it at a kind of a new, bigger liquor store near us. It's Woodman's is a grocery store, but they have a really, really nice liquor department over there, and they have a really, really big craft beer selection. So we stopped over there and got it, and he gave it a 3.5 out of 5. But what he said is not a big pumpkin fan, but I wanted to try this Imperial Pumpkin Stout. Not overpowering with pumpkin spice, but just good. Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's kind of in that realm for me. I might give it a little bit higher than 3.5, but what else to see what we got? This person checked it in, got it on draft over at Lowe's Food in Somerville, which I wonder if that's just kind of like maybe a grocery store that, because I know if it's like a Mariano's kind of situation near me, if you're in the Illinois area, Mariano's it's a grocery store, but they also have like a bar area where you can sit up and have a beer on tap, which is interesting. He didn't give it a rating, but he shows that he drank it on draft. Let's see what else here. We got a 4 out of 5 here. Somebody on my friends list purchased at the Jolly Farmer, which is in Waverly, New York. It's a convenience store, and he gave it a 4 out of 5, saying smooth, creamy, and not overwhelming on the spices, which I would definitely agree with that one. Of course, we got the Better on Draft podcast that I'm a fan of that checked this one in on Untapped, and they gave it a 4 out of 5, saying it's better than Pumpkin this year. And this one, they checked this one back in the day and all that kind of stuff, so they liked it better than the Pumpkin. What else we got here? We got a 2.5 out of 5 from somebody else on my friends list. Checked this one in back in the day. But yeah, some people like it, some people don't. It's definitely an acquired taste, I would say, when it comes to having a pumpkin spice kind of Imperial Stout. But let's look at the global ratings and see what people recently are saying about this one, because this is the most recent batch. So let's look. This person gave it a 4 out of 5. Let's see. We got a 3.75 out of 5, saying so delicious. Slight pumpkin and spice is there, which, yeah, definitely I would agree. Let's see. We got another 4 out of 5. We got a 3.5 out of 5. This person gave it a full 5 out of 5, saying smooth but complex. A lot of flavors going on from the start and then again on the finish. So this guy must have really liked it. What else we got? We got a 4 out of 5 here, saying the only better pumpkin beer would be an Oktoberfest, so pumpkin is a close second. So yeah, this person might enjoy an Oktoberfest style of beer more than he would enjoy this, but he said this is a pretty damn close second. So a lot of people definitely do enjoy this one. We got another check in here, 4.25 out of 5, saying version 2022, saying dark, roasty, spiced, and pumpkin, roast coffee, creamy, pumpkin, cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice. Yeah, that's definitely all the spices I would expect from a pumpkin spice kind of situation, even though you're not getting them individual spice flavors. All those cohesive spice flavors could be from the cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, all that comes like that. I wouldn't say to me it's really creamy. It definitely has that, when it comes to a body, I would say it's more of a medium body to me. It's not really crazy when it comes to creaminess, but definitely a little bit roasty. Those are coming from the malts and everything, but I wouldn't say roasty in the coffee sense of it. It's just, to me, it's roasty bitterness from those roasted malts. But he purchased this one at a place called the Wine Cellar, which is in Williamsburg, Virginia. But overall, yeah, ratings are pretty decent on this one. It's definitely one of those ones where you either like it or you don't. And a lot of the ones that I'm seeing here have said that it's not too crazy when it comes to the pumpkin. So that's kind of a good situation. If somebody's not a big fan of pumpkin, you may still enjoy this one. Or if you're just kind of worried that it's going to be too pumpkin-y, you most likely won't have to worry about that. And you'll still get a little bit of that pumpkin spice flavor, but it's not going to be overpowering, which I think is what Southern Tier did a really good job at trying to make sure that this beer wasn't overpowering when it comes to that pumpkin spice kind of aspect. So yeah, pretty decent check-ins overall. A lot of really good ones and a lot of people where they're like hit or miss. So this is definitely a hit or miss beer, I would say. But let's start figure out what we're going to be doing for ratings over here on our end with this guy. So, of course, first thing we like to do is either look at can art, bottle art, depending on what the beer is sitting in. Today we got bottle art, and of course, it sticks to a lot of the Southern Tier normal bottle or like labeling. When it comes, it's clean, it's classy. I love Southern Tier's logo with it just having all that detail right there. I love the kind of black and purple kind of thing on here, since I'm a huge fan of black and purple, so this definitely catches my appeal when it comes to that one. I actually really like the pumpkin with the hat on there. Having that black pumpkin with the purple hat I think is really cool. It's just enough detail to know that it's Southern Tier, and of course you're going to see the Southern Tier logo, so you know you're going to have to be in the know when it comes to either having this be an appealing kind of label. Sure, this is the one thing that would catch my attention about a beer from Southern Tier at a liquor store or bottle shop is the Southern Tier logo, just because it's clean, it's classy. And then the name is also a really nice name. Of course, Warlock being the name. The colors are a good choice. So it's not too crazy when it comes to being intricate and having a lot of detail in it. But this is definitely something that I would come to expect from anything from Southern Tier. Just having that clean label, something that is classy and overall just pretty nice. So even though it's not what I would usually look for when it comes to can art or bottle art or anything like that, this one from Southern Tier, yeah, I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. I'll give it that. It's not like a terrible rating, but I definitely do enjoy the colors. I enjoy the logo. I enjoy the pumpkin on there. So, yeah, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 for bottle art. But let's see here. Let's just say if I went over to Southern Tier and got this beer at a flight, if they did flights, let's see. I know there was one where I saw here, they have a couple different locations when it comes to where Southern Tier is. So let's kind of see here. I know they have actually, let's go to the website really quick and see what their location situation's like. So let's go to Southern Tier Brewing Company. So they, press yes. Yes, I'm 21 years or older. Let's see. Tap rooms. What kind of, so they have tap rooms all over the place. So they have a tap room in Lakewood, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Buffalo, New York. So where's the Lakewood location at? Lakewood, New York. Okay, that's Lakewood, New York. Got it. So you got Lakewood, New York location. Let's see, Cleveland. And this, they have a Liquid Culture Society. What's that? So it's just kind of like a little program that they have over there. So they definitely have locations spread out through different states when it comes to North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, New York, of course. So it's cool to have that kind of availability and that's probably why I've seen a lot of East Coast check-ins when it comes to Southern Tier, just because if they're in multiple different states, you're most likely going to have multiple states having multiple distribution options for Southern Tier. So that's cool that they have a good availability on the East Coast. I think that's really nice that they have locations in different states to kind of have people be able to try it from pretty much a good handful of states. So let's see here. If I went to one of those locations and bought this beer and got it in a flight, would I get another one? To be honest, yeah, I probably would. It's not to the point to where it's like I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5 rating on Untapped. No, don't get me wrong, but it tastes light enough to where it doesn't really taste boozy. The bitterness isn't too predominant to where I'm only okay with having a 5-ounce glass of this. I would definitely enjoy another bottle of this, or just another 10-ounce pour, or however they decide to do it. Most likely it would be a 10-ounce pour if it was at 8.6%, I would assume, at the brewery. I don't know if they'll be up to it. Probably I would say they would be a 10-ounce pour. But I think it's good enough to where I would enjoy another one of these. Yeah, for sure. But let's see here. With that being said, what is my final rating on this guy going to be? I think I'm going to give this a very, very solid 7.5 out of 10. That's where I'm going to leave it. 7.5 I think is a pretty good rating on this one. Like I stated before, it's not too bitter. The pumpkin spice isn't too predominant. It's just an overall very, very solid Imperial Stout. And if you're not the biggest fan of pumpkin spice in anything, I would still give this one a try, and you may be surprised. The pumpkin, like I said, is not too predominant in this one. You still get that nice roasted malt character in there. And overall, I think it's a pretty damn solid beer. So 7.5, I think, is where I'm going to leave it with this one. Still pretty damn good. So if you have the option to pick this one up, and if you're curious, I would say give it a try. If you're a fan of pumpkin spice or anything like that, if you're a fan of pumpkin spice and Imperial Stouts, this is pretty much the beer for you practically. Because it hits the best of both elements and puts it into one beer. And I think Southern Tier did a really good job with this one. So I'm impressed. I'm definitely impressed that I like a beer with pumpkin in it. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not really the biggest pumpkin spice guy when it comes to things, but I'm definitely enjoying this pumpkin spice little Imperial Stout from Southern Tier. So I think they did a pretty damn good job. But other than that, I think that is pretty much what I have for you guys today. So thank you everybody in chat for hanging out. You guys are awesome. If you haven't yet, please hit that like button. It would help me out a lot. Also, if you're new to the channel and like what you see, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with that notification bell. It'll let you know whenever I go live to another review. I got a review planned for you guys tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. And then maybe Monday. I don't know about Tuesday because I might be going into work. But let's see here. Of course, you can follow me on all my other social media platforms. You can follow me on my Instagram. You'll see what I'm be reviewing that day, plus a bunch of different behind-the-scenes stuff that I'm doing over at the brewery. So you can see that. Shoot me a follow over there. Of course, you could also shoot me a friend request on Untapped as well. You guys hear me talk about Untapped all the time. It's a fantastic platform. I like to call it Facebook for beer drinkers because that's pretty much what it is. You check in beers, get badges, all kinds of stuff. It's really, really fun. So you could shoot me a friend request on that as well. But of course, I'm always going to recommend the best way to support me and help me do what I do is to get over to the Patreon. Of course, over there I do monthly craft beer giveaways of Illinois exclusive craft beers. So go over there, help me do what I do, help me get more beer in my hands, and I am definitely giving back to you guys as well by getting you guys some Illinois craft beer that you guys may not normally be able to try. So if you guys enjoy that or want to help support me, the Patreon is be the best way to do so. So you can find a link to that down in the description below. All the links to anything that I do when it comes to where you can find this beer and all that kind of stuff is down in the description. So keep an eye out for those. But other than that, yeah, I think that is pretty much what I have for you guys today. So again, thank you everybody in chat for hanging out. You guys are awesome. Thank you everybody who's going to be watching on the replay as well. You guys are fantastic. And I'm going to end this like I always do before we get the hell out of here. If you're going to drink responsibly. Don't drink and drive. And I'll see you all next time. Cheers.